Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers. I appreciate your patronage. Thank you for joining me on this Sabbath as we tackle the second part of this series on the end of days and the how the destroyer has involvement within it, according to prophecies from various sources. And I will be tackling a few more of those as well, trying to bring forth information that people have never heard about so that you can get a expanded idea and also have other sources to look into for yourself and to read and study and hopefully in doing so, you will get a fuller understanding on the wide scope of what it is that we're dealing with as far as the end of days and our being the final generation. I appreciate all of you and for your questions and your support, for the dialogue, often the answers that I receive from you and the things that I learn from you, because it definitely is a two-way street, and we're all still learning from each other, and that's what makes this fellowship and my relationship with you as a listening audience such a wonderful thing, is because we do learn so much from each other, and then we seem to bring the best out of one another, and it's also a very difficult thing for those of us that have been open to discernment and have been brought to the knowledge, the discernment that the Father and the Son have blessed us all with. Many of us are in situations, circumstances, living lives where there's not others that we can talk to about any of these things, and that's been a lonely road for a lot of us for a very long time. And so for us to have a group where we can share amongst one another and speak about and help each other to understand at a deeper and a more profound level about the things that we have all been learning about, because it seems like in this day and age that, as it says in the Word, that the Father and the Son are truly pouring out the Spirit on all flesh, and many are awakening, and many are being introduced to the conspiratorial side of life, and are beginning to question and to seek answers for things which there's not many that can give guide or give direction upon the esoteric nature of these things. And all of this is, contained within the Word. It's just that, especially for people that are new students to it, that have never understood the veiled nature of the all-encompassing nature of what the gospel covers, when they read it and they have discernment, it completely reads differently than the way that we would have studied and read it earlier in our lives, because that's happened for many of us, including myself. I remember, as being young and even as a teen, and during the early part of my life when I had studied the Word, that of course I've got the basics and understood the simple stories, but I never understood the deeper aspects, the deeper meanings of what was written there. And so it wasn't until having really studied all of these other things and being brought back full circle to the Word that I was able to grasp the details. And so I was, really given the eyes to see and the ears to hear and the mind to understand. And so once you have that kind of a discernment, the Word reads completely different. And all the things that seemingly didn't make sense, and how the Gospels used to be almost boring to read just because, most people don't have the understandings to unlock all that is contained within. It's like reading some kind of scientific literature, or some kind of really like a NASA space manual or something like that, where you just don't understand the concepts and the definitions and don't have the mind to really bring forth, what is written. And so having that discernment, just makes the story come to life and really resonates with the Spirit and resonates with your own soul's remembrance, and helps one to come to the deeper understandings of what life and this world and the next are really all about. And so that's a wonderful thing, and I give all honor and all praise, all worship and thanksgiving to both the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, for the blessings of discernment and for bringing all of us to the understanding of truth in such a way that even what I would consider most church authorities, and especially the mainstream preachers and pastors and ministers, that most of them do not even have this kind of understanding. And so I really count us all as fortunate and all as very, very, very blessed. And for those of you that are new to the show and that have been led to myself and to others that are also speaking out on these things, well, just always give thanks to the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit for leading you in hopefully what I consider the right direction, because we seem to have been blessed with a number of the different skeleton keys, and totally willing to share all of them with you and to speak out on all these things, even though I know myself I've been largely criticized and harassed and belittled and made fun of because of the things that I talk about. But it's okay. I take the Ezekiel 33 parable of the watchman as a point of reference and as very important, and I consider it to be priority for my life, that those of us that have been brought to understanding, brought to discernment, that we have a responsibility to share that with others and to help all the people that we can. Because another thing that happens is once you have your eyes open and you have an understanding to be able to perceive and conceptualize and understand all of these things, we have a great responsibility to share that and to not just hold it within ourselves and to hoard these kind of secrets. That, and I don't mean to just go out and try to shake every person that you can and try to, force it into them, because most people are not ready. But I do, for those that are led to your path and that cross your daily life, that are brought into your world, that, a large part of the work is to assist those that have been led to us. And so that is part of our responsibility in serving the Father and the Son and being good foot watchers and being good watchmen on the wall. Of course, we're not supposed to throw pearls before the swine, so to speak, especially for those that aren't ready to understand these kind of things and that will only argue with you over everything and that won't be able to take anything from your time and effort, that you could really spend your energy in better ways and to help those that are ready. And that was a lesson that I had to learn myself, because when I first woke up to all of these things, I wanted to share them with the world. I spoke about it nonstop with every person that came across my path, and I basically lost a lot of friends and a lot of family members because of the things that I was speaking about. And there's better ways, I've learned over time and over experience. There are better ways to approach people, especially your loved ones, that really we have to start slow, plant seeds, and try to meet people where they are and intrigue them, pique their curiosity with different aspects, especially on things that they are already interested in, but that, begin there and work your way up from there and lead them into more profound concepts and deeper aspects of what is, the veiled truth. Because some things, if you share certain things with people initially, just come out of the box on, like even with the Nakash and their presence and how they're connected to the line of Cain and to the fallen angels as being the alien presence here. Some of those things will completely throw people for a loop. It will make them run away from you. And so start easy and realize that, especially for people that are new to the knowledge, that you have to begin slowly and treat them easy. Otherwise, they'll just run the other way. So, anyways, I'm going to go into a lot of different books, and I'm going to try to share with you. You'll definitely want to write these things down because you're going to want to look into this information for yourself at a later date. And I'm going to try to bring little pieces from many different books that most people have never heard about so that you can have a chance to study them, look into them for yourself, and then come to your own conclusions as to whether they are worthy of your time and worthy of your effort in trying to understand them. One thing I do want to say is that, of course, as in the interview that I did with Stan, that he had warned people of some of the extra biblical books, and of course, I also warn people in the same manner, but that I myself am more open to having studied them, but that people really need to have a foundation in the canon, in the Old and New Testament, and some of those books that are mentioned within the Old and New Testament, like Jasher and Jubilees and the Book of Enoch, and that there are many books that we no longer have access to. There's many books that are mentioned within the canon that we don't have any documentations on, like the book on the wars of the Lord. It's one of those that is mentioned that we don't have in scriptural form anymore. And so, and I would love to have those books, but I try to study what is available. And so for those of you that are like myself, that are that do have a good foundation on the canon, and that can go outside of the canon to understand what aligns with it and what doesn't, because there are many of the books that may contradict the KJV, and certainly if they contradict or they don't align up with what is revealed, and they don't provide any more description or any more detail on the stories that are contained within the gospel canon, then certainly you might want to put your time and your effort somewhere else and not elaborate upon them in too much detail, too much effort. But there's, and I use this reference in the show that I did with the hijacker this past Wednesday. Everybody has great interest in the story of our Lord, and especially his incarnation and his embodiment as man God here upon this planet, and with his earth walk, but that in the canon, in the different Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that there's not many references at all to his childhood life, to whether he was, God incarnate as a baby and as a young child, and what had happened during all those years before he suddenly appeared at age 33 to begin his ministry. And he wasn't ministering to the people long before the Pharisees and the church authorities conspired against him to crucify him on the cross. And even though there is a great deal of information as to that part of his life, there's not much mentioned about the earlier parts of his life. And for those of us that hold Christ as Savior Messiah, and I certainly am interested in learning everything I can about him and the things that he did and the things that he said, that there are a whole group of texts of extra-biblical books called the Protevangelium of James. And these texts have what are called or referred to as the infancy gospels. And there's many of them, dozens of stories about the childhood and the early life of Christ, which, in my opinion, once you read them, you will fully understand that Christ was not like any other human and any other incarnated being, that he certainly was the prophesied fulfillment of Savior Messiah as dictated by the Old Testament and as relayed by the old prophets, and that the New Testament is an ongoing continuation of fulfillment of the prophecies that were laid out in the Gospel of old. So, I would recommend that people look into those particular stories just because of their, added detail and their extra insight into the life of Christ. And so, especially for those of us that want to know more about him, I think they are of great benefit. And that I found myself crying often in reading them, and I found them to resonate with my spirit in a very profound way. And so those of you that are also moved by the stories of Christ, especially when you come to the part of his crucifixion and his death and his sacrifice for humanity and for all the sins of the world, especially, like I did a show a few months back on the Gospel of Nicodemus, and I spoke about the 3 days when Christ was out of body, when he had been murdered, and how he went down into the depths of Sheol, and how he took the patriarchs of old and led them out of the bondage of Sheol, broke them free from the gates of iron and the doors of brass, and freed them from the enslavement of Satan and Hades, and took them back into the pleasures and the beauty of paradise. It's a deeply profound and moving story, and it's hard for me to keep it together even when reading to you as a listening audience. And so, those kind of stories are, especially for those that are disciples and followers of Christ, they are deeply moving. And so, I'm going to begin first with a quote from the Kolbrin Bible, very short passage, and it will cover a warning, an old accounting, a warning about the return of the destroyer. And then we'll go into some of these end time prophecies veiled within the many different texts that, again, that are considered extra biblical and that most people have not heard about. And you'll definitely want to look into them for yourself. Beginning with chapter 4 of the Kolbrin Bible, it's called The Destroyer Part 2, and this is from the Great Scroll. It says this: O sentinels of the universe who watch for the destroyer, how long will your coming vigil last? O mortal men who wait without understanding, where will you hide yourselves in the dread days of doom, when the heavens shall be torn apart and the skies rent in twain? In the days when children will turn gray-headed, this is the thing which will be seen. This is the terror your eyes will behold. This is the form of destruction that will rush upon you. There will be the great body of fire, the glowing head with many mouths and eyes ever changing. Terrible teeth will be seen in formless mouths, and a fearful dark belly will glow redly from fires inside. Even the most stout-hearted man will tremble, and his bowels be loosened. For this is not a thing understandable to men. It will be a vast, sky-spanning form, enwrapping earth, burning with many hues within wide open mouths. These will descend to sweep across the face of the land, engulfing all in its yawning jaws. The greatest warriors will charge against it in vain. The fangs will fall out, and lo, they are terror-inspiring things of cold, hardened water. Great boulders will be hurled down upon men, crushing them into red powder. As the great salt waters rise up in its train, and roaring torrents pour towards the land, even the heroes among mortal men will be overcome with madness. As moths fly swiftly to their doom in the burning flame, so will these men rush to their own destruction. The flames going before will devour all the works of men. The waters following will sweep away whatever remains. The dew of death will fall softly as gray carpet over the cleared land. Men will cry out in their madness, "Oh, whatever being there is, save us from this tall form of terror. Save us from the great dew of death." And so many have been speculating as to whether this planet X, this what is referred to as the destroyer in the Kolbrin Bible, whether it is like a dwarf, a brown dwarf star, and that it emits a red form of light, and that in the other references of the destroyer, every time it passes close to the earth, it spreads from its, when it gets close to the proximity of the earth, it envelops the earth in a red cosmic dust. And that this dust may be the thing that is referred to in Revelation, where it speaks about how the lakes and the waters will be turned blood red. We're going to actually go to that reference real quick and see what it says, and then we'll elaborate upon it. Okay. I believe it is covered here, yes. This should be in Revelation 6. Let me make sure. Well, no, this isn't the exact reference, but I'm going to go ahead and read this. This is from Revelation 6. Beginning with verse 10, it says, actually, I'm going to start with verse 9. It says, "And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And white robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. The kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and their chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountain. And I said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? It says, remember in the show that I did previous to this one, I had read about the Hopi prophecy. And in that prophecy, it gave mention of the same, of the elite, those that had hid themselves into the mountain, and how they called upon the mountain to fall on them because of the wrath of the Lamb, the wrath of the Son of God in returning on that day. And that when that wrath comes, the elites will know that they've been on the wrong side of the war, and that they've been supporting a false god, and that the allegiance and the money and the wealth and the power to rule with impunity that they indulged upon and enjoyed while upon the planet, that it is not worth it. It was just not worth it. All right, skipping to Revelation 8. because I believe this is the part where it speaks about the seas being turned to blood, but we'll see. All right, and I'm going to skip to verse number 5. And the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire, mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of the trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain, burning with fire, was cast into the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. And the third part of the ships were destroyed. The third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. The name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many died of the waters because they were made bitter. The fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars. So as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of the heavens, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. We'll read a little bit more, and then we're going to go to another passage. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. And unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. It was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. On their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. They had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth was as the teeth of lions. They had breastplates, as it were, breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots, of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. They had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. All right. Now, The next part, which I'll just read these next three sentences, and then we're going to go into it. The sixth angel sounded a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. All right. So the next part is about what these horsemen look like, which is important. I guess I should read this real quick too, because it's going to be significant to what the two things that I'm about to go into. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth and brimstone. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke, and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, and with them they do hurt. All right. Now remember the vision of the locust armies and the four angels that are to be loosed by Apollyon Abaddon, meaning the destroyer, the angel of destruction, that is going to be given authority to slay a third part of the men. Him and this locust army, that they're going to wipe out a third part of the men that are remaining upon the planet. Now, what I'm going to read from next has to do with the release of the locust army, the Nephilim, and the giants. And then I'm going to go into reading one other thing which is also connected to the vision of these particular horsemen. The next passage that I'm going to be reading from is called the Cave of Treasures. And in this specific part, it's going to speak about a time during the time and life of Alexander the Great. And for those that have heard my shows previously, it's historically referenced in mythology that Alexander, that his mother Olympias, that she was a worshiper of the Nakash, of the serpent, and that she used to participate in the temple orgies with these particular reptilian beings. And that Philip of Macedonia, who was the man that she married and who was supposedly Alexander's father, that he cited that he had seen his wife in bed with a serpent or a Nakash, a feathered serpent, or one of these reptilian shape-shifting beings, and that Alexander may have been the progeny of that copulation, much like Eve being beguiled by Satan, by the feathered serpent, the Nakash of Genesis 3, and that the result of that fornication was Cain and the line, the lineage of Cain, who are the tares, the goats, and those that follow the left-hand path. Remember that reference, because, okay, I'm going to go into the passage now. It says this. This is from the Cave of Treasures. When Alexander was king and had subdued countries and cities and had arrived in the east, he saw in the confines of the east those men who are of the children of Japheth. They were more wicked and unclean than all other dwellers in the world, filthy people of hideous appearance, who ate mice and the creeping things of the earth, and snakes and scorpions. They never buried the bodies of their dead, but ate them. People ignorant of God and unacquainted with the power of reason, but who live in this world without understanding, like ravening beasts. When Alexander saw their wickedness, he called God to his aid, and he gathered together and brought them and their wives and children, and made them go in and shut them up within the confines of the north. This is the gate of the world of the north, and there is no other entrance or exit from the confines of the world, from the east to the north. And Alexander prayed to God with tears, and God heard his prayer, commanded those two lofty mountains which are called the children of the north, and they drew nigh to one another until there remained between them about 12 cubits. All right, I'm going to elaborate on this particular passage, and then I'm going to finish reading the quote. Now, it's my opinion that what is being referenced to here is that in his war to subdue and conquer the entirety of the world, that Alexander came upon the giant tribes, and that he met them in what might have been the polar opening, the northern polar opening, and that he banned them, confined them there with their particular children. And that, who knows, maybe it was iced over. I don't know exactly what happened. We do know that the North and South Poles, that Antarctica was covered in ice and in mountains of ice, and that a lot of that is dissipating, and that there are pyramids even now that have been found in Antarctica and places that were iced over, that ancient cities and old artifacts, these kind of things are appearing now because of the ice melt. But anyways, I'm speculating here that the giant tribes, which they also mentioned the 22 kingdoms that were imprisoned by the Northern Gate, included among these are the tribes of Gog and Magog, which we know that in London, the founding of London is attributed to Gog and Magog, and that they were giants. There's a bunch of different names that are mentioned here as well. Nawal, Ashkenaz, Dinafar, Paktai, the Thracians, Wolotai, Humayi, the Huns. It even mentions the Dogmen. And it also mentions a tribe called the Cannibals. And so it's my opinion that these people that were imprisoned within whatever that portal was, that gateway, that they were connected to the giants and to the Nephilim. Now, I'm going to read the reference, the rest of this particular quotation, because this has to do with the release of the four angels from the river Euphrates, and also with the return of the giants and the Nephilim as the locust army, that they will be part of all that. And this is also at the end of the first show on the series that I did on this. And after I read this, I'll check the chat room. But at the end of that show, I read Joel chapter 2, which speaks about a people of great and mighty as there has not been since, and that that the land was like Eden before them and was a wilderness of destruction after them. How they couldn't be killed even if they fell upon their own swords. how they would enter in through the rooftops and climb in through the windows, these kind of things. They were given, the reference to them was of supernatural aspect. All right, continuing. At the end of the world and at the final consummation, when men are eating and drinking and marrying wives and women are given to husbands, when they are planting vineyards and building buildings, and there is neither wicked man nor adversary on account of the assured tranquility and certain peace, suddenly the gates of the north shall be opened, and the hosts of the nations that are imprisoned there shall go forth. The whole earth shall tremble before them, and men shall flee and take refuge in the mountains and in the caves and in burial places and in clefts of the earth, and they shall die of hunger, and there will be none to bury them, by reason of the multitude of afflictions which they will make men suffer. Now, before continuing on, because this is, I still have a bit to read as far as this quote, I want to bring you to remembrance on two other passages. Remember Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, where Christ spoke about, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the second coming of the Son of Man. And he spoke about, how men would be eating and drinking and giving in marriage, and just like the days of Noah. Same as what it says here. When men are eating and drinking and marrying wives, and women are given to husbands, when they are planting vineyards and building buildings. And then also remember the reference in Thessalonica where it speaks about that there was peace and come sudden destruction. Same thing here. And there is neither wicked man nor adversary on account of the assured tranquility and certain peace. And then suddenly the gates of the north shall be opened, and the host of the nations that are imprisoned there shall go forth. The whole earth shall tremble before them, and men shall flee and take refuge in the mountains and in the caves and in burial places and clefts of rock and clefts of the earth, and they shall die of hunger. There will be none to bury them, by reason of the multitude of afflictions which they will make men suffer. This is also the same thing as Joel chapter 2. All right, continuing on. They will eat dead dogs and cats. They will give mothers the bodies of their children to cook, and they will eat them before them without shame. They will destroy the earth, and there will be none able to stand before them. After 1 week of the sore affliction, they will all be destroyed in the plain of Joppa. Remember, this is speaking about Armageddon here. For thither will all those people be gathered together with their wives and their sons and their daughters. So they're going to be part of those forces that are brought into the plains of Armageddon to fight against the returning of the Son of Man, the return of Christ. All right, I'm going to read the final passage, which is linked to the all right. The last part, because it's going to connect them to the Antichrist as well. And so you'll see that Apollyon Abaddon, the Antichrist, and being revealed, the locust army and the 4 angels that are released from the river Euphrates, these that have been imprisoned in the sides of the north, they will be released with those armies. It says this. The heavens will be prevented from letting fall rain, and the earth from producing germs and plants. Does that not sound like the genetically modified food? And the earth shall remain like iron through drought, and the heavens like brass. Then will the son of perdition appear, of the seed and of the tribe of Dan. And he will show deluding phantasms, and lead astray the world. For the simple will see the lepers cleansed, the blind with their eyes open, the paralytic walking, the devils cast out, the sun when he looks upon it becoming black, the moon when he commands it becoming changed, the trees putting forth fruit from their branches, and the earth making roots to grow. He will show deluding phantasms of this kind, but he will not be able to raise the dead. He will go into it, Jerusalem, and will sit upon a throne in the temple, saying, I am the Christ. And he will be borne aloft by legions of devils like a king and a lawgiver, naming himself God and saying, I am the fulfillment of the types and the parables. He will put an end to the prayers and offerings, as if at his appearance prayers are to be abolished, and men will not need sacrifices and offerings along with him. He becomes a man incarnate by a married woman of the tribe of Dan. When this son of destruction becomes a man, he will be made a dwelling place for devils, and all satanic workings will be perfected in him. There will be gathered together with him all the devils and all the hosts of the Indians, and before all the Indians and before all men will the mad Jewish nation believe in him, saying, this is the Christ, the expectation of the world. The time of the error of the Antichrist will last 2 years and a half, but others say 3 years and 6 months. And when everyone is standing in despair, then will Elias come from paradise and convict the deceiver, and will turn the heart of the fathers to the children and the heart of the children to the fathers. And he will encourage and strengthen the hearts of the believers. That's from the Cave of Treasures. All right. I'm going to check the chat room. Then I'm going to read one other passage. And I know we're quickly running out of time. I'm also going to do another show next weekend, next Saturday, on the third part of this, because there's just too much. There's too much that I still need to read and to cover. But I'm going to try to do what I can to cover what I can in the next 30 minutes. All right. Okay, I appreciate everybody sharing dialogue and helping one another to come to understanding on all these things. I appreciate all of you, and thank you for being cordial, and praise God we don't have any trolls. All right, I'm going to continue on with a passage from what is called the Apocalypse of Zephaniah. The Apocalypse of Zephaniah. In the chapter that I'm going to be reading from, the chapter is named The Accuser and the Angel Iramiel in Hades. And the reason I'm reading this particular chapter is because it gives a reference to the accuser and gives a description of him that seems to match what is being talked about in Revelation as the locust army. And so it says this. Again I turned back and walked, and I saw a great sea. But I thought that it was a sea of water. I discovered that it was entirely a sea of flame like slime, which casteth forth much flame, and whose waves burn sulfur and bitumen. They began to approach me. Then I thought that the Lord Almighty had come to visit me. Then when I saw, I fell upon my face before him, in order that I might worship him. I was very much afraid, and I entreated him that he might save me from this distress. I cried out, saying, Eloah, Lord Adonai, Sabaoth, I beseech thee to save me from this distress, because it hath befallen me. In that same instant I stood up, and I saw a great angel before me. His hair was spread out like that of a lioness's. His teeth were outside his mouth like a bear. His hair was spread out like woman's hair. His body was like the serpent's, which when he wished to swallow me. And when I saw him, I was afraid of him, so that all the parts of my body were loosened, and I fell upon my face. I was unable to stand, and I prayed before the Lord Almighty. Thou wilt save me from this distress. Thou art the one who saved Israel from the hand of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Thou saved Susanna from the hand of the elders of injustice. Thou saved the three holy men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, from the furnace of the burning fire. I beg you to save me from this distress. Then I arose and stood, and I saw a great angel standing before me with his face shining like the rays of the sun in its glory, since his face is like that which is perfected in its glory. And he was girded as if a golden girdle were upon his breast. His feet were like bronze which is melted in a fire. And when I saw him, I rejoiced, for I thought that the Lord Almighty had come to visit me. I fell upon my face, and I worshipped him. He said to me, Take heed, worship me not. I am not the Lord Almighty, but am the angel, the great angel Uriel, who is over the abyss and Hades, the one in which all of the souls are imprisoned from the end of the flood which came upon the earth until this day. Then I inquired of the angel, What is the place to which I have come? He said to me, It is Hades. Then I asked him, Who is the great angel who stands thus, whom I saw? He said, This is the one who accuses men in the presence of the Lord. All right, and so you see from this vision of Zephaniah, he says that this accuser, this great angel that is in Hades, his hair was spread out like that of a lioness's. His teeth were outside his mouth like a bear. His hair was spread out like woman's hair. His body was like the serpent's when he wished to swallow me. Now, does that not sound like what is being revealed as the locust army in Revelation? It certainly, sounds like it to me. And also that for those that missed the first show, go and read Joel chapter 2 for yourself, because it's a very short chapter. You can read it in a short space of 5 minutes. But in that chapter, there is also given a description of the release of the locust army. And that in Revelation chapter 9, which I just read from, there is also the same description given of the locust army. And so it's my opinion that the locust army is of a supernatural type of fallen angel, demonic kind of hybrid being. And that's why it is that they, as the wrath of God, that they are going to be part of the judgment that is administered on those that are not written into the book of life. And that this punishment will take place after the last trump, when Christ comes to take his people. And that this is pre-wrath. And then, pre-wrath, rapture, last trump, last day. And that the wrath of God will be poured out on those not written into the book of life. All right. Let me check. Let me read one more passage. I think I will have time to cover this. This is another very interesting text, which I recommend people study for themselves as well. It's called the Apocalypse of Elijah. The Apocalypse of Elijah from the pseudepigraphal text. This will confirm what I just have been reading from, and will also confirm what I read in the Cave of Treasures. Very interesting text. You can read it in about an hour for yourself. Let me find where I want to start. All right, I think I'm going to start from chapter 3. Okay, I'm going to begin with chapter 3, the Apocalypse of Elijah. In the 4th year of that king, the son of lawlessness will appear, saying, I am the Christ, although he is not. Don't believe him. When the Christ comes, he will come in the manner of a covey of doves, with the crown of doves surrounding him. He will walk upon the heaven's vaults, with the sign of the cross leading him. The whole world will behold him like the sun, which shines from the eastern horizon to the western. This is how he will come, with all his angels surrounding him. But the son of lawlessness will begin to stand again in the holy places. He will say to the sun, fall, and it will fall. He will say, shine, and it will do it. He will say, darken, and it will do it. He will say to the moon, become bloody, and it will do it. He will go forth with them from the sky. He will walk upon the sea and the rivers as upon dry land. He will cause the lame to walk. He will cause the deaf to hear. He will cause the dumb to speak. He will cause the blind to see. The lepers he will cleanse. The ill he will heal. The demons he will cast out. He will multiply his signs and his wonders in the presence of everyone. He will do the works which the Christ did, except for raising the dead alone. In this you will know that he is the son of lawlessness, because he is unable to give life. For behold, I will tell you his signs so that you might know him. He is a ... of a skinny-legged young lad having a tuft of gray hair at the front of his bald head. His eyebrows will reach to his ears. There's a leprous bare spot on the front of his hand. He will transform himself in the presence of those who see him. He will become a young child. He will become old. He will transform himself in every sign, but the signs of his head will not be able. He will not be able to change. Therein you will know that he is the son of lawlessness. All right. I'm going to skip just a little bit on chapter 4. Because also I wanted you to know that in many of the apocryphal, the pseudepigraphal, the extra-biblical books, that the two witnesses at the end of days, even though they are large congregations of people, that the two witnesses are referred to specifically as being Enoch and Elijah. And that we know from the early stories of these old prophets that both in Enoch and Elijah were the ones that were transcribed, that were taken up into heaven before they had died. And it's my opinion that the reason that they were done so is because the Antichrist, when they return as the two witnesses at the end of days, after the Antichrist comes to reign and comes to power in the last 3.5 years of tribulation, that he will murder them in the streets of Jerusalem, that he will kill them, and as Revelation speaks about, their bodies will lay in the streets. I believe it's 3.5 days, and that after the 3.5 days, they will be raised up, and then they will be again brought back into heaven. And that this will be a sign and a witness for our generation as to, our being in the end of days. And so, the next part has to do and concerns the return of Elijah and Enoch, which I can give you many references. I could probably do a whole show on just the extra-biblical books which speak about Enoch and Elijah as being the two witnesses of the end of days. It says this. Excuse me for a second, I'm going to get a sip of water. Go get food if you want. Okay. All right. Verse 8, chapter 4. Oh, verse 7, sorry. Then when Elijah and Enoch hear that the Shameless One has revealed himself in the holy place, they will come down and fight with him, saying, Are you indeed not ashamed when you attach yourself to the saints, because you are always estranged? You have been hostile to those who belong to heaven. You have acted against those belonging to the earth. You have been hostile to the thrones. You have acted against the angels. You are always a stranger. You have fallen from heaven like the morning stars. You were changed, and your tribe became dark for you. But you are not ashamed when you stand firmly against God. You are a devil. The Shameless One will hear, and he will be angry, and he will fight with them in the marketplace of the great city. He will spend 7 days fighting with them, and they will spend 3.5 days in the marketplace dead, with all the people seeing them. But on the 4th day they will rise up, and they will scold him, saying, O Shameless One, O son of lawlessness, are you indeed not ashamed of yourself, since you are leading astray the people of God, for whom you did not suffer? Do you not know that we will live in the Lord? As the words were spoken, they prevailed over him, saying, Furthermore, we will lay down before the flesh for the Spirit, and we will kill you, since you are unable to speak on that day, because we are always strong in the Lord, but you are always hostile to God. The Shameless One will hear, and he will be angry and fight them, and the whole city will surround them. On that day they will shout up to heaven as they shine, while all the people in all the world see them. The son of lawlessness will not prevail over them. He will be angry at the land, and he will seek to sin against the people. He will pursue all the saints, they and the priests of the land, will be brought back bound. He will kill them and destroy them, and their eyes will be removed with iron spikes. He will remove their skin from their heads. He will remove their nails one by one. He will command that vinegar and lime be put in their nose. Now those who are unable to bear up under the tortures of that king will take gold and flee over the fords to the desert spaces. They will lie down as one who sleeps. The Lord will receive their spirits and their souls to himself. The flesh will petrify. No wild animals will eat them until the last day of the great judgment. And they will rise up and find a place of rest. But they will not be in the kingdom of the Christ as those who have endured, because the Lord said, I will grant to them that they sit on my right hand. They will receive favor over others, and they will triumph over the son of lawlessness. And they will witness the dissolution of heaven and earth. They will receive the thrones of glories and the crowns. The 60 righteous ones who are prepared for this hour will hear, and they will gird on their breastplate of Yahweh, and they will run to Jerusalem and fight with the shameless one, saying, all powers which the prophets have done from the beginning, you have done, but you were unable to raise the dead because you have no power to give life. Therein we have known that you are the son of lawlessness. He will hear, and he will be angry, and command to kindle altars, and the righteous ones will be bound, and they will be lifted up and burned. Chapter 5. I'm almost done with this too as well. And on that day the heart of many will harden, and they will flee from him, saying, this is not the Christ. The Christ does not kill the righteous. He does not pursue men so that he might seek them, but he persuades them with signs and wonders. On that day the Christ will pity those who are his own. He will send from heaven his 64,000 angels, each of whom has 6 wings, and the sound will move heaven and earth when they give praise and glorify. Now those upon whose forehead the name of Christ is written, and upon whose hand is the seal, both the small and the great, will be taken up upon the wings, their wings, and lifted up before his wrath. Then Gabriel and Uriel will become a pillar of light, leading them into the Holy Land. It will be granted to them to eat from the tree of life. They will wear white garments, and angels will watch over them. They will not thirst, nor will the son of lawlessness be able to prevail over them. And on that day, the earth will be disturbed, the sun will darken, and peace will be removed from the earth. The birds will fall on the earth dead, the earth will be dry, the waters of the sea will dry up. The sinners will groan upon the earth, saying, what have you done to us, O son of lawlessness, saying, I am the Christ, when you are the devil? You are unable to save yourself so that you might save us. You produce signs in our presence until you alienate us from the Christ who created us. Woe to us because we listen to you. Lo, now we will die in a famine, where indeed is now the trace of righteous one, and we will worship him, or where indeed is the one who will teach us, and we will appeal to him. Now indeed, we will be wrathfully destroyed because we disobeyed Yahweh. We went to the deep places of the sea, and we did not find water. We dug in the rivers and papyrus reeds, and we did not find water. Then on that day the shameless one will speak, saying, woe to me, because my time has passed by for me while I was saying that My time would not pass by for me. My years became months. My days have passed away as dust passes away. Now, therefore, I will perish together with you. Now, therefore, run forth to the desert, seize the robbers and kill them. Bring up the saints, for because of them the earth yields fruit. For because of them the sun shines upon the earth. For because of them the dew will come upon the earth. The sinners will weep, saying, You made us hostile to Yahweh. If you are able, rise up and pursue them. Then he will take his fiery wings and fly out after the saints. He will fight with them again. The angels will hear and come down. They will fight with him a battle of many swords. It will come to pass on that day that the Lord will hear and command the heaven and the earth with great wrath. And they will send forth fire. And the fire will prevail over the earth 72 cubits. It will consume the sinners and the devils like stubble. And true judgment will occur. On that day, the mountain and the earth will utter speech. The byways will speak with one another, saying, Have you heard today the voice of a man who walks, who has not come to the judgment of the Son of Yahweh? The sins of each one will stand against him in the place where they were committed, whether those of the day or of the night. Those who belong to the righteous, and will see the sinners and those who persecuted them, and those who handed them over to death in their torments. And then the sinners in their torment will see the place of the righteous, and thus grace will occur. In those days, that which the righteous will ask for many times will be given to them. On that day, Yahweh will judge the heaven and the earth. He will judge those who transgressed in heaven and those who did so on earth. He will judge the shepherds of the people. He will ask about the flock of sheep, and they will be given to him, without any deadly guile existing in them. And after these things, I'm almost done. After these things, Elijah and Enoch will come down. They will lay down the flesh of the world, and they will receive their spiritual flesh. They will pursue the son of lawlessness and kill him, since he is not able to speak. On that day he will dissolve in their presence like ice which was dissolved by a fire. He will perish like a serpent which has no breath in it. They will say to him, Your time has passed by for you. Now therefore, you warn those who believe in you will perish. You with those who believe in you will perish. They will be cast into the bottom of the abyss, and it will be closed for them. On that day the Christ, the King, and his saints will come forth from heaven. He will burn the earth. He will spend 1,000 years upon it. Because the sinners prevailed over it, he will create a new heaven and a new earth. No deadly devil will exist in them. He will rule with his saints, ascending and descending, while they are always with the angels, and they are with the Christ for 1,000 years. All right, I know I'm running out of time. I'm gonna highlight one last thing here, because it speaks about the rapture, right? But notice that the rapture comes after the release of the Antichrist and after some of the destruction and the death of Enoch and Elijah in the streets of the city. And that after Christ takes up his people, then the planet goes through a great drought. And this is also mentioned in the whole passage that I read on the Cave of Treasures, how the land would become dry and there would be no water and there would be no way for them to quench the thirst. Those that are not written into the books of life. And also that there's no other rapture after that rapture. There's not a pre-trib rapture and then a rapture later. It happens once. You are either ready or you're not. You're either the wise virgin or the foolish virgin. And that you have to get off the fence. You have to make the decision about whom you want to serve right now. Again, I'm going to read that one part. This is from chapter 5, the Apocalypse of Elijah. And on that day, the Christ will pity those who are his own. He will send from heaven his 64,000 angels, each of whom have 6 wings. The sound will move heaven and earth when they give praise and glory. Now those upon whose forehead the name of Christ is written, and upon whose hand is the seal, both the small and the great, will be taken up upon their wings and lifted up before his wrath. Then Gabriel and Uriel will become a pillar of light, leading them into the Holy Land. It will be granted to them to eat from the tree of life. They will wear white garments, and angels will watch over them. They will not thirst, nor will the son of lawlessness be able to prevail over them. And on that day the earth will be disturbed, the sun will darken, and peace will be removed from the earth. The birds will fall on the earth dead. The earth will be dry, the waters of the sea will dry up. The sinners will groan upon the earth, saying, "What have you done to us, O son of lawlessness?" Saying, "I am the Christ," when you are the devil. You are unable to save yourself, so that you might save us. You produce signs in our presence until you alienate us from the Christ who created us. Woe to us, because we listen to you. And lo, now we will die in a famine, where indeed now is the trace of the righteous one, and we will worship him. Or where indeed is the one who will teach us, and we will appeal to him. Now indeed we will be wrathfully destroyed because we disobeyed Yahweh. We went to the deep places of the sea, we did not find water. We dug in the rivers and papyrus weeds, and we did not find water. So, you see also where the shameless one says, "My time is up." He knows that his time is up, and all that is coming soon. I apologize for that I just got to here, and I will look into what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm doing a one-man show, so I'm not able to monitor the chat room, and so I apologize if anything of offensive nature is going on in there. And I would ask that people respect others. If there's 90 seconds left. Just know that I'm going to follow up on this show, that I'm going to do the third part next Saturday, because I still got so much that is linked to and tied to all of these things. And there's so much more. Please look into that information for yourself and look into all the different things. And I will address this issue. I'll email the person. But I ask that you study these things for yourself. Do not believe anything that I say, but that if you would, you take it before the Father in discernment and ask him to reveal the truth to you and to confirm the things that I'm talking about. And again, I'm not saying that everything that I'm reading from is gospel, and that the things that I'm covering within these texts, that they are all, of equal standing as far as the KJV. That you have to have discernment in studying all this for yourself. In Yahushua Yahweh's name, I pray for all of you. God bless all. Good night.
What exactly would you say if your child looked up at you and asked you about God and if He exists and if He's true, and wondered what would happen when someone dies? Is there a heaven? And what about that man up on the cross? Am I forgiven? How exactly would you answer those hopeful little lies when you're college educated and convinced it's all a lie? Sure, you went to Sunday school when you were young, but that was then. You're above those simple thoughts now. The only God you know is man. Are you saddened and ashamed to tell this little soul that you don't believe in anything and have no reason and no hope? There's no heaven and no meaning. There's no purpose to our lives. Did you believe we're just evolved, random mutations come alive? You know better than an insect, son, and when you die, that's it. I've learned through education that good and bad just don't exist. It's all just evolution. It's survival of the fittest. And we can get you a prescription when your life becomes depressed. I'm sorry that I've crumbled all your hopes and all your dreams, but it's time you realize that life's not what it seems. Are you lost? Are you alone? Are you convinced that life does not make sense? Have you forgotten that God even exists? Have you replaced all that was real for a life of cannabis and created your own truth? A happy atheist? Are you lost? Are you alone? Are you convinced that life does not make sense? Have you forgotten that God even exists? Have you replaced all that was real for a life of cannabis and created your own truth? A happy atheist? Do you realize your answers could just shatter all these dreams and everything that ever mattered to this precious little being who had belief in certain pieces and received that inner voice inside his conscience? His conscious mind believes, and it figures you to think because you've been driven by your ego and your greed, and he sees that you don't practice what you preach. You've lost your dignity and you've succeeded in destroying all beliefs and defeated all his real hopes and dreams. They might never be retrieved, and the flame within his heart almost completely is extinguished, and the holes within his soul are filled with mimics, and the message of God's grace within his mind has been diminished, because the answers that you gave him took a piece of his existence, and the power of your words were unforeseen, and in that very moment you destroyed the very purpose of his being, and now he's lost and alone, and he's convinced that life does not make sense, and he's forgotten that God even exists. He's replaced all that was real for a life of counterfeit and created his own truth. A happy atheist.